Hey retro gamers. Today on Smashing Bricks, we're headed to the year 2000 to stop a reanimated witch skeleton from zombifying a cast of cuddly characters in Banjo-Tooie for the Nintendo 64. Hey, welcome back to Smashing Bricks, a retro gaming podcast. This is episode 33. My name is Eddie Inzauto, and today I'm joined once again by GamesIndustry.biz editor-in-chief, Mr. James Batchelor. Hey, James, how are you today?
I'm good, Eddie. Thank you so much for having me back.
Oh, thank you so much for joining me for this Banjo-Tooie podcast. I'm really super extra excited about this conversation, and we'll find out why in a bit. How about you?
Yeah, I'm intrigued. I'm very much looking forward to this one. I've never known what to think of Banjo-Tooie and until actually playing it, and now I very much have an opinion.
Okay. Yeah, so you joined me the last time for another Nintendo 64 game, Pokemon Snap. And you had played that one before, right? But this one you hadn't played before this podcast preparation?
This was brand new to me. So I'd played Banjo-Kazooie, weirdly not in the days of the N64. I think my cousin had rented it from Blockbuster like for a weekend, so we did a bit of Banjo-Kazooie, but I never had it myself. And then when they released the HD remake of Banjo-Kazooie on Xbox, I was like, oh yeah, I remember that being good, and I'm really in the mood for a 64 era style platformer. I'll download it. Played most of Banjo-Kazooie. I used to run a podcast with a colleague of mine, Chris String. We used to do a podcast called Rare Replayed, which is when Rare Replay came out, we were going to play through all of the games on the collection, but we also interviewed people that had worked on each one. And we did. I'm trying to remember who we spoke to. I want to say we spoke to Ed Bryan for Banjo-Kazooie. I'm pretty sure it was Ed Bryan. And that was the first time I'd played Kazooie all the way through. And we were eventually going to get to Tooie and Nuts and Bolts. But we were busy. We started to have trouble getting guests together, and just the podcast kind of fell apart. So Tooie was always on my list to play, and I never really got around to it until you invited me onto this. I hoped it was going to be on Switch Online, because I thought then I can play the proper N64 version. But I ended up playing the Banjo-Tooie HD version. I mean, it's the same game, just looks sharper. But the version from Rare Replay, so on a nice, comfy Xbox controller, run the weird 3-pronged N64 thing that we used to love.
Okay, interesting then, because I played a different version. I played the original, but I think it's super cool that you're such a pro Rare game player. That's
I love
amazing
Rare.
For this.
Rare is one of the best studios, and their N64 era stuff is among the best things they ever made.
Yeah, and we'll actually talk more about that right after we finish up this episode, because this month's bonus round is all about our top Rare games. So everybody listening, if you don't have access to that, jump on the Patreon, and you can get all of the bonus round episodes that way. I'm excited for that too. I just played like 30 Rare games in the last week. Okay, so what is Banjo-Tooie? I think that's the first thing. I mean, a lot of people know what it is, but maybe some people don't. We've got to give a little bit of an overview, right? It's a sequel to Banjo-Kazooie, but what does that mean?
It very much means it's Banjo-Kazooie, but bigger. So, typical kind of 3D platformer, similar to how they were in the era. So very kind of Mario 64-esque style gameplay. A big collectathon. There's lots of things to be finding. The main things you're finding are the jiggies. There's 10 jiggies in each of the level, but then obviously there's the Jinjos. There's different moves and stuff. This one, you can kind of tell it's a post Donkey Kong 64 sort of game where everything's a bit bigger, everything's a bit more complex. There's, different characters to play, there's different powers to have. I mean, we'll get into all this obviously, but things like Mumbo is now not just a character that sits there; he's now someone you can play as. And yeah, just colourful cartoon platformer there where you explore wacky worlds, finding MacGuffins.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting how Rare kind of went through. There's like a spectrum of Rare collection games, and this one, I think, is the most different to me of the 3D platformer collectathon, quote unquote, games. But yeah, we'll go more into that. So you basically gave your history, which was nil, and mine was similar also. Like back in the day, I definitely played through Kazooie right when it launched, right when it released. We had the whole, oh wow, is this better than Super Mario 64? That was a big conversation of the time among the magazines and friends and stuff. And I really enjoyed Banjo-Kazooie, but then I played Donkey Kong 64 in between the two, right? Because DK64 came out the year before this, if I remember correctly, and I got super into
Christmas
that.
'99, I think, was DK64.
Yeah, and by the time Tooie came out, I mean, we were getting close to the next gen. I mean, we already had the PlayStation 2 at this time. Obviously not a Nintendo console, but it was almost like I didn't have gas left in the tank for these kinds of games, even though everyone said that it was really good. I may have dabbled in like the first level or two at the time because I would rent games all the time, but it was never something that I sat down and really got into. So it was lost to time for me. So when it came up as an option this time, it was a good choice. Yeah, so that's it for me. Only dabbled, and now I just played the Nintendo 64 version for this conversation. More of the game's history, just to run through kind of quickly. It was released in November of 2000 in North America and Japan, and in the EU it came out April 2001. Developed by Rare, published by Nintendo. This was the Males Brothers design team, designer Greg Males, artist Steve Males, programmed by Chris Sutherland and Paul, can't pronounce his last name, Makachek. And the audio, the music was composed by the legendary Grant Kirkhope. Now, the Males squad worked on the Donkey Kong Country games. So this was a team that was mostly together and had a lot under their belt at this point. So yeah, that was the team. And development started in June 1998, which is interesting because Banjo-Kazooie was released on June 29th, 1998. So they started the next day, if this is to be believed, because they teased the game at the end of Banjo-Kazooie, right?
Yeah, no, I vaguely remember that, yes. Were there already hints that it was going to, like, not link to, but like there's some stuff, I mean, we'll get onto it, but there are some stuff in Tooie that links directly back to Kazooie, if I remember rightly. Like,
yeah. They had what I think came to be known as Stop and Swap with
That
an
was
O
it.
swap. But it was, I think that was part of the tease at the end of Kazooie. And the plan was to use the 10-second kind of memory that the Nintendo 64 had, where you could pull the cartridge out and put it back in and the system wouldn't blow up, to pull out the original cartridge, Kazooie, or one of them, and put the other one in to transfer information to the new game in that 10 seconds. And 10 seconds is a long time. That's easy, 1, 2, 3. And how long does it take to switch a cartridge? That would have been easy. But the new Nintendo 64 models that came out in, I believe, 99 reduced that kind of buffer time down to 1 second, which which would be quite a challenge.
I already find the idea of doing a 10-second swap quite a lot of pressure. The idea of doing it in 1 second, it's like this, you've just got no chance. That's just Rare. Rare was so ambitious and trying to do different things with the hardware, different things with their game that they probably couldn't technically do. I've been lucky enough to speak to Rare developers over the years, obviously on the Rare Replay podcast, but also I've done some freelancing for a site called Time Extension. I wrote about the making of the original Perfect Dark and the making of there's an article due to come out in a different publication about the making of GoldenEye. And honestly, both games, they were very much kind of really pushing the limits of how much memory they could use. And they're both games, they had to cut things, cut a lot of things to get them working. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happened with the Banjo games as well.
Yeah, definitely. They had a lot planned for this game. Well, they had a lot planned for Kazooie that they then worked into Tooie, and then they had a lot planned for Tooie that they apparently cut out as well. They had extra levels that weren't going to be in. They had to scrap some stuff. I think they planned a multiplayer where the second player could play as an undead version of Bottles the Badger and take control of the enemy characters as the first player played through and try to stop them, which actually happened in another game or a few games later. I remember Zombie U was a thing like that. But that would have been interesting. Yeah. I think. The counter-operative mode in Perfect Dark was like that.
Yeah, the counter-op mode in Perfect Dark was incredible. We'll get onto this, but this Tooie already, without the stuff they couldn't manage, is already very much an and the kitchen sink sort of game.
Oh yeah, I guess they went with the more is more school of design, and we'll see if that actually worked out for them. As far as reception, it did work out for them, right? It has a Metacritic score of about 90. Now, Metacritic wasn't really aggregating everything back then, but it took a lot from game rankings, and it has a bunch of publications included. So we have a 4.5 out of 5 from Allgame, a 33 out of 40 from Famitsu, a 4.5 from GamePro, a B+ from Game Revolution, a 9.6 out of 10 from GameSpot, 9.4 from IGN, 81% from N64 Magazine, 4 out of 5 from Next Gen, 9 out of 10 from Nintendo Power, and Edge giving it a 7 out of 10. Edge being a little bit more critical. So that's good reception, really good reception. It was good enough to get remade, as you said, for the 360, kind of improved-ish version. Smoothed out the frame rate.
This is the whole thing. What's a remake? What's a remaster? It was essentially it was a port of the original N64 game, but sharpened and made to play smoother and look nicer.
Yeah, well, the original, it had a lot of slowdown as part of the experience, and that was a big thing. But also, the original game was kind of designed around the expectation of slowdown, so some of the music would run too fast in the Xbox version, so you'd have the wrong music playing in the cutscenes that didn't make sense. That's the one thing that stood out to me, and looking into it is funny. It was Grunty is being very doom and gloom on screen, and it's got the opening the banjo playing when it's supposed to be more dun 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 in the original. So that's funny. And then they remade it not remade, but they then ported it to Rare Replay, which is the version you played. And I think there were a couple little extra changes there too. One of the ones that I demanded in my 5 pages of notes, that I wished for in my 5 pages of notes, was literally added exactly in the new version. And that is hints for where the jiggies are. Because in the original, they just tell you nothing. Were they not in the
N64 version?
No.
Oh, Jesus. I was playing it through this time, and I was absolutely stumped for most of the game. And going into that hint set, that hint menu, and it basically just gives you a list of, it's not saying specifically where the jiggies are, but simple thing, hints reclaim the treasure and, defeat the Rocknut tribe.
At least it's something, because when
yeah,
I
it's a start.
played, there were times when I was playing and had no clue where to go, what to do, and just kind of stumbled and fumbled around until I found something or anything to lead me to the next thing, the next jiggy, the next whatever. It did get a couple of awards. It was awarded Best Platform Game at GameSpot that year, 2000, and it was a runner-up for Best Sound and Best Nintendo 64 Game. And at the 4th Annual Interactive Achievement Awards, it was nominated for Game of the Year and Console Game of the Year, as well as Console Action Adventure. But it didn't win any of those. But it was close. Close, but not quite. It's kind of how I feel about this game. Spoiler alert. Sales, I don't have any sales numbers. I don't really care. That's okay. I'm not about money. Maybe you're more about it than I am as a GamesIndustry.biz man.
I'm all about the sales data. I love a bit of sales data. I also don't know sales data, but I suspect it wasn't as high as Kazooie. I think that purely because obviously coming out June 2000,
it's just late.
It's so late. GameCube came out, a year later. And, I know that Perfect Dark, which also came out like kind of summer 2000, didn't sell as well as GoldenEye because, yes, there's more N64 owners by the time the game arrives, but you don't have the long tail of people picking up in the years afterwards because the attention goes entirely on, and the shelf space goes entirely on GameCube, because obviously back then is when we had to go to these strange things called shops to go and buy our video games.
Yeah, those games that came out in basically the heart of the Nintendo 64 era continued to sell for years. Okay, so that's enough of the history, because we've got a lot to talk about, because this game is gigantic, and we played it. We totally played this. So, we talked about the version you played. What struck you first about this game, being that this was not a revisitation, but a first look, essentially?
My very first impression was it's a surprisingly slow start.
Oh my God, yes.
Like, so slow. Like I'm, in my old age, I don't get to sit down to play video games until like 10:30 at night. So I'm sitting down, I'll play Banjo-Tooie. I'll get started on this, make sure I've played enough before I speak to Eddie. And
by 11:15, you got to control somebody.
Yeah, exactly. Like I remember like this storyline. I remember Banjo-Kazooie, and weirdly, I have since gone back and played the opening of Banjo-Kazooie. And the opening of Banjo-Kazooie really just throws you in. There's a very short cutscene, and then you're in the opening area where you can practice the moves. And if you've played it before, you just go straight to Grunty's lair. You're in within 10 minutes at the absolute most, you're in Mumbo's Mountain, the first level. This one, good Lord, I think it took 10 minutes just to get to the first cutscene. It feels so long. It's not bad. Like I have to say, like the writing and the humor, I love, and like it's very kind of cheeky, very kind of British kind of humor. It's its own style. It's lots of puns, lots of sarcasm, lots of cheeky stuff. Lots of characters basically not getting on. And so like it was, but the start obviously, like there's a long cutscene with the revival of Grunty, and then seeing where Banjo and Kazooie are, and then the death of Bottles, which is surprisingly dark, and that's another hallmark of British humour, dark humour. The death of Bottles, then you like fight. Is it Mungo? Clungo, the minion.
Yeah.
Then you get to the Isle of Hags, the Jinjo village, where
you're almost playing now.
You're almost playing where the queen becomes mummified, and then after that, you eventually find like the Jiggy Temple where you unlock the first level mayhem. I think it's about 30-40 minutes before you get to the first proper level, and There's not a lot of signpost with the original Banjo-Kazooie. It's nice and easy. It's like, here's the opening area, and you very clearly go up that spirally shaped mountain in the middle, across a bridge, and into the bad guy's lair. And it's like narrow corridors, and it's quite it's quite easy to find the first level.
Right, now you're basically in the Super Mario 64 castle looking for your first painting.
The spaces here are so much bigger. Like the Isle of Hags, the Jinjo village is massive. Like it's a big wide space. Like this is a large impression of Banjo-Tooie I've got from this whole playthrough is how much bigger the levels are. And I don't know if that's a good thing because they feel larger and they feel much more like places rather than video game levels, but they feel sparse. There is no need for the Jinjo village to be that big, given that there is even nothing to do there. Village? There's nothing to do there apart from check how many Jinjos you've got. And that could be a menu.
It is a menu. You can do that on the pause screen.
Right. So
I don't know what the Jinjo village is for, to be honest.
It's everything about this game felt larger than it needed to be. And I get the idea of it's impressive. You look at it, and particularly if you look at it within context of N64 hardware, it's impressive like how many large levels there are, how big this game is, how much they managed to cram into a cartridge. But why? Does it make it better? I know, at the risk of showing my hand like a little early, this game does make me question if bigger is actually better.
Okay. Yeah, a note on the time. I wrote specifically, 45 minutes in, I'm at level 1.
Jesus Christ.
It was 45 minutes exactly for me.
No.
A lot of just walking and then cutscene, and then walking and then cutscene.
That's a way to suck the enthusiasm out. Like I said, after I was done with this, I went back to Banjo-Kazooie, and within 45 minutes of Banjo-Kazooie, you've probably done the entirety of the first level. Like you've probably got 10 jiggies or close to it.
Yeah. Oh, I should give a little bit of perspective here for everyone listening and for you. After I was pretty much done with Tooie, I then played Kazooie, quite a bit of it. I couldn't stop. A bit of Donkey Kong 64, quite a bit of Conker's Bad Fur Day, all 3 Donkey Kong Country games, a little bit of Super Mario 64, just as a way to kind of place Tooie among its related titles and contemporary titles.
Again, 45 minutes into Mario 64, you've probably done half of, if not most of, Bob-omb Battlefield.
And that's a game where you get a star and then you have to get kicked out and go back in to start again.
Exactly. The whole game, this game is very clearly designed for people who played the original Banjo-Kazooie to death. I think they knew that they weren't going to get people who skipped Kazooie and started with Tooie. I think they knew that they are going to be... They're making a game for the fans who wanted more, whereas the vast majority of sequels made nowadays are done with the idea of it's got to be an entry point for people who heard good things about the first one, but didn't try it and want to start off with this one. It's a sequel that is really reliant on the fact that you've played the original. I absolutely love the decision to give you all of your original moves from the word go.
Yes.
Like everything you unlocked from Banjo-Kazooie, you can do in the opening area. And that's brilliant because so many sequels go through a convoluted way of taking away the abilities you had in the previous game so that you're not overpowered. But the downside of that is you've got to remember all the stuff that you could do in Kazooie and then remember all the new things you can do in Tooie.
Also, it poses a pretty big challenge to the developer, I would imagine, where they gave you all these moves and spaced them out over the course of a 15-hour 3D platformer in Kazooie, and now they have to figure out how to do more things in the new game without those abilities being one-off or not so fun to do, etc. You know, it's almost like we've done everything that we thought of. I hope there's more left.
And also, getting really nerdy here, they've got to think about the controller mapping. Like when they made Banjo-Kazooie, they added all these moves, and they've all got like different button combinations or different, like different ways to control them. They've then got to account for all of those, but then find new and easy ways to press, different buttons in different orders, to do all the Tooie moves without them being like context sensitive, for example. So it is impressive. It is impressive.
And one of the ways that they were able to add new moves was by making it context sensitive, really, because they gave you the option to transform into a different other thing, like a submarine or a truck or a different animal, a dinosaur or something in each level. And once you're that, you have a different set of moves. And then they also added the separation pads where you step on the pad and now Banjo and Kazooie separate and you can swap between them. And now that's a different context. So you have a whole new set of moves for each of them when they're solo. Do you think that worked well?
I think that worked well. I think the only downside for that for me was the fact that you need to find those separation pads. I think if you made a Banjo-Tooie now, there would be a button to separate them wherever you are. So that you can just swap between. That would be ideal, but limitations and so forth. Like I thought it was an interesting idea. I thought it was an interesting idea that you could separate the two characters and then each one had their own moves. I think I did still find it quite frustrating because the separation pads aren't particularly near the thing that you need to be separate for. Like the one I'm thinking of is it's Jolly Roger Bay. You need Kazooie's hatch ability to hatch an egg that's in the little turtle cove. But the separation pads, from what I remember, are in the main town at the start of the level. And then once I'd separated into Kazooie, I couldn't remember how to get to that turtle cove.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that you could smash through that thing in the main town to reveal something under it for hours. Until I walked around a particular side of it and saw a crack texture just on one side of it. I said, oh, maybe I can do one of the 5 different moves that breaks things in this game. And that's another problem to me. The moves overlap. Now you have Banjo and Kazooie together, and they have a move that breaks environmental objects. Now you separate them, so now Kazooie needs a move to break environmental objects. And you have an egg that is a grenade, whereas the first game there was one type of egg. In this game there's 5 or 6 types of eggs.
6 types of egg.
And one of those blows things up. So each thing that you think needs to be blown up, you have to try a few different ways to do it sometimes.
It's daft as well, because then you've still got the original moves, one of which is for breaking things. Like in the opening area, you literally, one of the first things you do in the game is like, you walk away from your house and there's a boulder and you hear someone trapped under the boulder and you think, oh, well, that's all right because I remember how to break stuff. This is just a reminder to how to break. No, because I haven't got the right break thing to move, and you don't get that until like several hours into the game. And then, oh God, like one of the eggs, the standard eggs, the fire eggs, the grenade eggs, the ice eggs, the clockwork egg, which releases a little bird that also blows stuff up. I feel like there's another egg in there somewhere. And it's like, by the time you've got to the 5th level, there is so much to remember. I genuinely could not, I can tell you one occasion where I used the feathers in this because I could not remember, A, what they did, B, how to activate them. So there's all these feathers around the game. I'm like, you're telling me something, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I remember there's a flying pad in Mayhem Temple, the first level. I don't remember coming across any flying pads elsewhere.
Oh yeah, there were many more in Kazooie. It's true.
There were a lot more in Kazooie. I think at this point, I should confess, I didn't finish this game.
I rage quit this game.
Oh, good. We're on the same. But do you know what? I've been worried about this. I've been worried about this. I thought, God, Eddie's going to have played the whole damn thing. I forced myself to get as far as Pterodactyland, the 5th level, and I'm like, I cannot take any more of this. I can't.
Literally same. And I almost quit at Jolly Roger Lagoon.
Yeah, it was only because I happened to have enough jiggies that I pushed through Pterodactyland. Like, oh, maybe that level's better. It's not.
Yeah. Interestingly, I want to talk a little bit about the overall game design, the world design, because Pterodactyl Land confused me. Because you
Oh,
could just waltz
massively.
right into Pterodactyl Land. But every other level, you had to. Okay, so let's compare and contrast. In Super Mario 64, we know you opened doors, made it to new parts of the castle, and then you could jump into paintings or little secret areas. Great. Banjo Kazooie, you had kind of a bigger world. You were able to open up new portions of the world by using musical notes, and then you can access puzzles that would open up the door to the next world, and it would get a nice little sign there. It would show you exactly where it is, and the puzzle to open it is right nearby where the entrance to the world is. In this game, there are worlds with entrances scattered around this gigantic kind of hub world, and when you get a certain amount of jiggies, you're able to access them. However, you have to go back to an early portion of the hub world into a temple that is locked until you have the right number of jiggies. When you do, the door opens. You go in, you go do a jigsaw puzzle mini game. We'll talk about more mini games for sure. You do a jigsaw puzzle mini game. You watch a cutscene where a giant crystal puzzle piece shoots energy into the sky, and then it gives you a zoomed in view of the entrance to the next level, wherever the hell that is.
Well,
Who
that's
knows?
yeah. Whenever they show you where the next world is in Kazooie, it's a fairly short walk and it's fairly obvious.
Yeah, it's like right around the
when-
corner.
It's right around the corner from puzzle to world entrance. Mario 64, it is you just jump into a painting. This, it shows you in a cutscene where in the hub world, the Isle of Hags, the entrance is, and you cannot help but think, where the hell is that?
Yeah, it's like, well, I never seen that before.
Yeah. Even simple things like the and like they do kind of all lead on from one and the other. So I think it's you start in Jinjo Village, you then go to the Wooded Hollow, which is where the temple and the first world is. You then go into the canyon, which is where the second level, the Glitter Gulch mine. Then you go into another part of the hub world, which is where Witcher World is. Then you go to a cliff face,
Best
which is
level in
where
the
Jolly
game.
Roger Lagoon is. Then you go to a wasteland, which is where Pterodactyl Land is, and I don't know what lies beyond that, and I frankly don't care. But we'll get onto other mini games later. But even that Jiggy mini game, that for me typifies a major issue with this game in that it is trying too hard to do more things bigger and better. When honestly, simplicity works.
Yeah.
When you are unlocking a new level, you need a certain number of jiggies to unlock a new level, and you have to fill in a puzzle that is showing a video of Banjo running around the level you're about to unlock, and you place all the jigsaw pieces in the gaps. But because the jigsaw pieces are showing a video, not a still picture, it's confusing as to what goes where because everything's warps and it messes with your mind a bit. Whereas in Kazooie, you go to the picture that needs extra pieces, you press a button and it fills the picture for you.
Right.
And you just all right, I've
button.
got enough jiggies to fill these gaps. There is my picture. I have now unlocked that. And it's like, and just for the hell of it, there's a time limit. So if you don't finish the jigsaw puzzle mini game in time, you have to start again. It's like, it shouldn't be this hard to unlock a level for which I have the required number of jiggies.
Yeah, my thought was, who cares about doing this? I just want to get in the level. This is pointless. This is not the game. This is busy work. This is not fun.
It smacks of padding. Okay, I'm gonna go on to a slight tangent here.
This game is a tangent.
The game is a tangent. The game that Banjo-Tooie most reminded me of in terms of design, and bear with me here, is Monkey Island 2 LeChuck's Revenge. In that game is built around backtracking. You go to an island, you pick up a thing, you go back to the other island, you pick up another thing, you combine the things, you go to a third island, and you use the thing. There is no reason that those things could not be on the island where you need to use them. Like, it is purely to get you traveling. I was lucky enough that I once interviewed Ron Gilbert about adventure games and how he makes them and so forth. And he admitted they were. He said it jokingly. He said they were just evil back when they made that game, and they had to kind of pad it out a bit. They had to get you backtracking so that you could. So it makes the game last longer. Because if all the things that you need for the puzzle are near where the puzzle is solved, the game doesn't last as long. You're not doing as much traveling and so forth. Banjo-Tooie very much reminded me of this kind of ethos, because you are constantly going back and forth for different things. There's something that the game does, which I think on paper should be absolutely brilliant, in that none of the levels are standalone. You can travel between some of them on a train. So without going through the hub world, you go from the mine to another level on a train, or into the hub world or whatever. You can bring things back from one island, from one level to another. There was the first level, you find a mole that is trapped in a jail cell. You find a way to let it out, but it doesn't know where to go because it doesn't know the way home. There's very clearly a boulder at the back that you've got to break, and that will unveil something. I assumed a jiggy. You don't get the move to break that boulder until the second level, Glitter Gulch Mine, which is where you find the mole, the mole or the rodent or whatever was in jail, their companion, who says, "Oh, they're missing. I really want them to come back." So you then have to go out of level 2, back into level 1, where the guy is trapped in the jail cell. You then smash the boulder, revealing a tunnel that then leads into level 2, into where the guy is. Now that is and should be clever. It's almost kind of a Metroidvania style. You keep coming back and you unlock more secrets and so forth.
One of the first things I wrote in my notes was, "It's a Metroidvania? Question mark, exclamation point."
Yeah, exactly that.
But it's not really.
But it's not. The difference with Metroidvania is those games work because there is a natural feeling to, I now have this ability. I can go back to that thing that I saw, and I can unlock it and I can explore what's there. There's very clear indications of, this is a thing you can't do yet, come back later. That's not clear in Banjo-Tooie. Case in point, Witchy World, the third level, the weird circus one. The first thing you come across in that level is a mummy bear who wants her 3 bears back. The first bear I found wanted a burger. I found a burger. I gave him the burger. He's like, "Oh, I'm too full now. You need to carry me." I spent ages trying to work out how to carry him. Couldn't do it. I'm using every possible move I could do. I separated into Banjo. He couldn't do it. I separated into Kazooie. He couldn't do it. She couldn't do it. Sorry. And I found out later that there's a move in, I think it's like the 6th or 7th level, where you can put someone in your backpack if you're just Banjo. There is no indication of that at all. None of the situations where you are required to come back indicate you can't do this yet. They just leave you to be stumped and just leave you to wander around. In Banjo-Kazooie, the original, you can get all jiggies in one go if you so choose. You can stay in one level and get all the jiggies. Mario 64, you can get all the stars by just going in and out of the level, like just constantly. Like, if you want to go to another level, you can do so. But if you want to stay on that one level and complete it before you move on, you can do that. Again, on paper, it's a really cool idea, having this connected world where all the levels are actually like in some way connected. You can transfer things between one level and another. They're not standalone experiences. That should be fun, but it's not, because they don't give you any indication about how to do it. I'll be honest, so I'm ranting now. I'm full-blown ranting now. We've opened Pandora's box.
I'm glad we ramped up to it, though. We didn't just come in right off the bat so hard.
Absolutely. Like I say, I was worried that it's like, I thought you liked this game. When you said you were excited about this show, I thought, oh God, he loves this game. I'm going to have to really hold back before I say how much I hate it. This game limits you severely on what you can do. Any other 3D platformer like this, Donkey Kong 64, Banjo-Kazooie, Super Mario 64, as I say, you can go through a level and you can do as much of that level as you want before moving on to the next one if you've got the required number of MacGuffins. This one almost feels linear, like you have no choice. You can only get 9 jiggies in level 1, which I think is not too far off what you need to get to unlock level 2. Like, you have to do them in a certain order. I'll be fully honest, I very early on in this game kind of resorted to walkthroughs. I'm lucky in that I'm playing in an age of walkthroughs. I can just fire it up on my phone and find a guide, and it says every
Do
single
this jiggy,
time.
then do this
Exactly.
jiggy, then do this jiggy. Yeah.
Every single time I looked at a walkthrough, and particularly kind of when you get to the later levels, like Jolly Roger Bay is like, right, before you can get this jiggy, you need to go to this level to get this move. Oh, you can't get this jiggy yet because you need to go to this level to get this item. You can't do this jiggy yet. And there's only like, out of the 10, there's only ever 2 or 3 jiggies you can get. And again, there's no indication of this. And I find that incredibly frustrating. If I'd have played this back in the N64 days, I'd have been tearing my hair out over this game, and I'd have traded it in for something far better pretty bloody quickly.
Yeah, honestly, I think this concept is a brilliant concept, and it is because it worked. We had Metroid. We had, all these games that do this sort of thing. But again, the execution and the design that they came up with just was no good. One thing I wanted to say is I wrote this down and underlined it. The best thing about this game is Kazooie's face on those underwater rocks. Why? Because it's a clear indication that there's a move you need that requires Kazooie to get through those rocks. You're not going to do it by shooting at it. You're not going to do it any other way. You need a move, and that move is iconified by Kazooie's face.
Yeah.
But then again, that move is a goddamn malfunction of control. I don't know if you got it, but you try to do something with Kazooie underwater with that spear move, and you go into a freaking death spiral, and the camera is going upside down and backwards and forwards like it always does underwater.
Again, this goes back to the Metroidvania point. You need some sort of indicator, some sort of guidance, some sort of visual language to tell you the connection. Yes, there's an element of you want players to work things out, and you don't want to spell it out too much for them. But there's a reason. Metroid, for example, Metroid Prime. I'm now flashing back to Metroid Prime. You can open all the blue doors with the standard laser. The purple doors clearly require the purple laser. Now, maybe that's dumbing it down a bit too much, but it makes it intuitive. It makes it easy to understand, and it's more satisfying if you know what you're doing because you have been taught. They never specify, they never say, you've got the purple laser, you can now open the purple doors. You work it out yourself. That element of it, that is worked out yourself. There's a reason 3D platforming collectathons are not Metroidvanias or not structured like Metroidvanias. And that is to give players the freedom to focus on what I know I keep on coming back to this point, but it's the freedom to focus on the bits you're enjoying. If you're getting frustrated with one level, you move on to another one and you collect other things there.
That's the game. Collect, open, move on, collect, get more stuff, have fun.
Exactly.
This isn't like a big brain puzzle in Banjo-Tooie, It's like figuring out what to do. It's not about cleverly figuring something out. It's about fumbling around, discovering something you had no idea ever even existed.
Yeah.
So you're not even thinking. You're just getting to the thing after a time tax of trying everything else, not realizing that you don't have what's necessary. One of these really pissed me off in the God, sorry to jump in here, but it fits. In the mine, there's a Jinjo up on the top of a water tower, and I'm trying everything to get up there. I'm looking around for flight pads, blah, blah, blah. 2-3 levels later, I go down a pipe, and I flush from that level into Glitter Gulch Mine and land next to that Jinjo.
Really?
And I was pissed.
I did not get that. No. Just no.
I wasn't even happy to find. I was like, oh, yay, I found this is the way. No, I was just mad. I was like, how the hell did you design this way?
And how are you supposed to know
Did you have testers?
It's ridiculous. And again, going back to the whole, the restriction on what you can collect, how many jiggies you can collect and in what order. Any of these games like this, there's 100 jiggies in the whole game. Or something, 120 jiggies, however many jiggies there are. You only ever need 60 or 70 to complete the game. And in Kazooie, you collect the 60 or 70 that you can get and that you want to get, and then you can progress to the end of the game at your own pace. This is so much more guided. You're dragged through the order that they want you to complete the jiggies and they want you to access the levels.
Yeah, you feel constantly gated off
Yeah.
by bad game design.
Yeah. You're not focusing on the jiggy that they want you to focus on.
Yeah.
It's got to feel like the player's decision, and this doesn't.
Yeah.
I want to talk about level design as well, not just in the context of the backtracking.
Like the art direction of it, the structure of it,
the geography of them, like the layout of them. Like, again, they're big. They're so much bigger than Banjo-Kazooie's levels, and that should be better. But they're not better because they are so confusing to find your way around. I would get lost in Glitter Gulch Mine because it's not just the main Glitter Gulch Mine section. You've then got like 3 different entrances to tunnels that may or may not connect to each other. And there's always different chambers and different tunnels and different this and the other. Like, as an example, Pterodactyland, I had no idea where I was going in that level at all. I found my way inside the mountain. As it, you go in through a cave and it says you're inside the mountain, but I'm in a fenced off path. I have no idea how to get to the rest of the inside of the mountain. When you load the Banjo-Kazooie levels, you really get a sense of, like, yes, they were small, but they were laid out brilliantly in that it was fairly obvious just from like the starting. Mumbo's Mountain, you instantly know, right, there's tons of mobile notes up that hill. I'm going to go up that hill, collect all those and see what's at the top. And there'll be a jiggy up there. There's a path up there with more notes. I'm going to follow those. That'll lead me to more jiggies. There's a bridge ahead of me in front of over a lake. That's got notes on it. That will lead me to more jiggies. It's instantly obvious where you should be going, what you should be exploring, and 9 times out of 10, what you should be doing to unlock jiggies.
Yeah, and there's always something to do in each little segment of the area. You go around a corner after you've done a task and gotten something for it. You go to a little different segment of the area, and all of a sudden you see a new task to do. You do that little puzzle, and you get a thing for it. You're always doing something in Kazooie.
Banjo-Tooie, you are always walking around. Like, you look at the 3D map of Pterodactyland, and it's big, it's impressive, it's huge, but there's no indication there's no rhyme or reason as to where you should be going. It's not laid out in a way that makes sense. Oh, I should explore over there. It's just a big space. It goes back to what we were saying about the Ginger Village. There's no need for it to be that big because there's nothing to do. Nothing to do. But it's not obvious. You spend so much time wandering. I honestly, the amount of times, like my final session on this, for example, was I was trying to find one jiggy in Pterodactyland. I wandered around that level for, I kid you not, a full hour. I did not unlock any new moves. I did not find any jiggies. I did not make any progress at all because I was so confused. Glitter Gulch, again, so confusing.
It all looks the same.
Jolly Roger Lagoon. Like I said, I did eventually find the hatch move in Pterodactyland. I thought, right, you know what? I'm going to go back to Jolly Roger Lagoon. I'm going to hatch that egg. I'm going to get that jiggy, and then I am calling it quits. Got back. I had no idea how to get to that Turtle Bay because Jolly Roger Lagoon, the way the level is structured, it is here's your pirate town and a big lake. You have to go through the lake to get to tunnels, which are confusing as hell. Some of those tunnels lead to the Turtle Cove. Some of those tunnels lead to Atlantis. Some of those tunnels lead to, like, I remember, I would often read a walkthrough to work out where the hell I was. And like I was reading through Jolly Roger's Lagoon. I was close to what I thought was a jiggy. I was like, right, I must be close. I was looking out specifically up for the section I was in. Another section I can see is that, when you get to Atlantis, where the f*** is Atlantis? I'd spent an hour and a half in that level and I hadn't come across any Atlantis.
I fully agree with all of this, by the way. You can't form a mental map of the game because the areas are so indistinct from one another within a level. I wrote down that I hate the camera about 30 times on my 5 pages of notes. But one thing about it is, why is the camera always angled down so you can't see your surroundings? What is that crap? You have the camera control and you can pull the camera back, which I always tried to do, and the game always put it really tight to me the next time I went through any part of the geography, which was infuriating to have to continually press the down C button to pull back. But when you pull back, it pulled back and up, looking down at Banjo, thereby cutting off my horizon and my ability to see into the distance and build a mental map of the 3D space.
Yeah.
What is that?
And again, that goes back to the level design thing, like Mumbo's Mountain in the first game. You can see in the distance, there is something over there. There is something over there that invites you to go ahead. Now, some levels, things like Glitter Gulch Mine and so forth, obviously it's small, cramped spaces. It's, it's tunnels and caves. Pterodactyl Land is like in a canyon. So I get why they couldn't have the camera too far behind you, because otherwise the camera would be in the wall half the time.
But at least let me tilt it.
Yeah, exactly. That adds to the disorientation.
Oh, man. There's so many things. I could talk about this game for literally 5 hours.
It's little things. Like, I'm going to throw in a random one here. The health pickups. So, as with the original game, when you defeat an enemy, it drops a little honeycomb and that replenishes your health. Except this time, they've added 2 new ones. They've added one which, like, basically the indicator goes along your line, the line of honeycombs at the top of your screen, and you press X to the point you want to replenish. So if you've lost 5 of your honeycombs and you press X at the right time, you can completely have full health. Brilliant.
Great.
But then there's one that's like, it does it at random. So the indicator, the highlighted honeycomb just appears, like it just goes back and forth along the line. So you can easily give yourself less health. Why is that a thing?
So
health is never
it's
exactly...
It's just a mini game.
It is.
Yeah.
Health is never exactly sparse in this game. It's really easy to find either one of those little hives or just an enemy, and you just knock out an enemy. I never found myself less than 2 honeycombs down in terms of health. So why bother with these randomized health pickups?
Yeah. I've got like 3 things to say about this. 1, they could have, instead of doing the version where it goes up, 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 bottom to press the button, they could just do a max health one. Because that's what it effectively is. It's going at a pace that's like 1 honeycomb per second. Then for the other one, they could just have like a poison mushroom that reduces, in Mario terms, just something that if you pick it up accidentally, it takes away a honeycomb. That's a thing that games sometimes do. Don't make me play a friggin' tricky game where I'm trying to press the button at the right time and, oh, oops, I pressed it because it went at the wrong time as it went down. That's dumb.
This gets us onto the game's obsession with minigames. So health pickups.
Wait, before that, let me just say a couple more things about these honeycombs.
Absolutely, yeah, go for it.
Okay. They have all these honeycomb drops from these enemies, right? All the enemies drop these honeycombs. And I think a lot of this health management is they expected you to be low on health or something, because your enemies respawn every 20 to 25 seconds. Literally, I timed it numerous times. Why every 20 to 25 seconds these enemies have to come back? Is it to make the game harder so that I get hurt more? Is it to just annoy me, to make busy work where I have to go kill an enemy in between trying to do something in the freaking level? Or is it to replenish my health? Whichever it is, it's no good. It's just bad. I can't believe it. In the first game, you killed enemies, they were gone. You never needed health. You didn't need the extra health in this. You didn't need the extra challenge in this either. It did nothing. It served all bad purposes. And then the other type of honeycomb, you have the open honeycombs, where if you collect enough of them, you get an extension on your life bar. In the original game, you collect 6 of them, you automatically get an extra honeycomb. In this game, you have to collect them, then you have to get out of your level, go to a specific area in the overworld, go in and talk to this over-sexualized bee, get your upgrade, and then go back to her every single freaking time. What's the point? You did it perfectly in the first game. Why'd you ruin it in the second game? I can't believe it.
Why did they over-sexualize the bee? The bee and Humba Wumba. really kind of shows this was 90s video. I know it came out
it was
in
the
2000,
90s.
but this was 90s video games where they know that the vast majority of gamers are horny teenage boys. So let's put some boobs on the witch, the Native American witch that gives you powers. Let's put some boobs on the bee. Like this, obviously this came out a year before Conker's Bad Fur Day, which took that even further, but that did it as part of its humor. Like, jumping up and down on a sunflower's breasts is part of the joke of the game. There is no need for breasts on a bee in this game.
So ridiculous.
It's so ridiculous.
Now that I got my heart beat up, we were going to talk about mini games.
Yeah, I mean, there's
why
the mini games. We know why the mini games
all
are
I
there.
can say.
No, the mini games are there to make you play the multiplayer mode, because Rare found that by adding multiplayer to GoldenEye 007, which as we all know was a very last minute addition, that became the biggest reason for that game's success. As much as the single player game is amazing, the multiplayer is what drove sales for that game. So all of the mini games in this, and to be honest, I didn't delve into the multiplayer mode because you didn't need to. You just know. Like the Dodgems game where you're collecting gems, the football game, the first-person shooting sections where you're holding Kazooie like a fucking rifle and spitting eggs at things. All of
trying
that,
to go through a map that you have no map for with a timer, collecting things.
God, is it the one in Glitter Gulch Mine where you've got like shoot
the dynamite?
There's like the dynamite. There's like 15 dynamite. You've got barely a minute or two to shoot all of them. There is absolutely no way to remember where all of them are. I gave up on that one. But all of that, I
used
remember
a photo that I found online for that one.
Nice.
Yeah, I just said, okay, I gotta do that. I tried it like 3 times on my own.
Funnily enough, I'd forgotten about the first-person Kazooie egg shooting sections until I played this. But I remember back when this first came out, I was reading N64 magazine in the UK. I was reading that cover to cover every single month, and I remember them having a bit of a laugh about the fact that there was a multiplayer mode in this called Golden Egg, which is walking around shooting things, and it's like it's funny, but they are just trying to capitalize on GoldenEye having a multiplayer mode. When I started playing the other mini games, they're like, well, clearly they've got more multiplayers in here, because it's always 4 player. Every mini game you play, the football, the dodgems, whatever, always caters for people. So it's like, right, this is clearly. And it's just, some games don't need multiplayer. If I was flashing back to Donkey Kong 64, that had multiplayer modes. It didn't need, again, including a GoldenEye style shooter mode. It didn't need them. Not everything needed to be multiplayer. But the hope was that if the multiplayer is fun enough, the multiplayer is gets enough traction, it improves your sales. And it's like, it's multiplayer for commercial purposes, not creative ones.
And man, you bringing up Donkey Kong 64 right now, following the first-person mode is perfect because, like I said, I played Donkey Kong 64 a little bit. That game had weapons. Each Kong could get a weapon that you shot a different thing, and it worked great. The aiming was smooth. The reticle moved. It stayed where you wanted it. It was really good first-person aiming. Why does the aiming in Banjo-Tooie suck dog doo-doo so bad? I can't understand it. I can't believe it. It worked so nicely and smoothly in DK64, and every first-person aspect of Tooie, it was just a nightmare to control the reticle.
It's not even any better on the Xbox version. You'd think they'd have tuned the controls a bit more and, at least added like some sort of sensitivity option in the options or something. But no, like the aiming is just as bad on the Xbox version. And I don't understand, because I fully hold my hands up. I don't know how games are programmed or how they work, etc. But the programmer on both Banjo-Tooie and Donkey Kong 64, or one of the main programmers, was Chris Sutherland.
The same guy.
You would think... Yeah.
On the same engine. Isn't it the same game? Isn't it all on the Kazooie engine?
It's all on the Kazooie engine. I mean, this might be Rare. Rare is famous for kind of keeping its teams very, very separate. Yeah, it was just awful. There was no need for it to be that bad.
Yeah. Oh man. Mini games. God, like I said, I have 5 pages of notes. I could talk forever. What do you want to talk about next?
I honestly, we've gone through all my notes because I got so angry I just stopped playing it. It's my only note, and I was going to save this for the conclusion is this game is why there was never a Banjo-Tooie.
Mm-hmm.
Because on paper it should be amazing. Sequel to a great 3D platformer. All the original moves, plus tons of new ones, new gameplay types, playing as multiple characters, bigger levels that connect with each other. You write that down, and that gets you excited. But it's just not fun to play. And honestly, it was this. This came out 6 months after Donkey Kong 64. You had so many other 3D platform collectathons around this sort of time. There was oversaturation of the 3D platforming collectathon when this came out. And I think this game alone is part of the reason the 3D collectathon platformer died.
Yeah. Yet weirdly, it had this great critical reception. Donkey Kong 64 had great critical reception. Kazooie obviously did because it was earlier. And then over time, I was trying to like get a vibe of what people thought of these games. And over time, people have started to hate DK64 for its collectathon nature. And all I see is praise for Tooie. And it's almost like I see a bunch of people defending Tooie against what we're saying that nobody ever said before.
I don't understand that.
I think Donkey Kong 64 is 20 times better than Banjo-Tooie.
Don't get me wrong, I get that Donkey Kong 64 is a laborious collectathon in some
But that's what it
ways.
is. It is a game that is a collectathon.
It is. Like I get that. But the execution, and I think this is the bottom line that we've been coming back to the whole time. The execution of Donkey Kong 64 was so much better. It was so much more fun to play. I am honestly waiting for it to be added to Switch Online, because it will. Now that like Rare has started adding titles to Switch Online, there's no way they're not going to add Donkey Kong 64. A Nintendo-owned property developed by Rare on the N64 coming to Switch Online. I can't wait, because I can't wait to go back. I have fond memories of that game, and I know that an element of that's going to be nostalgia and rose-tinted specs. But there is no way in hell when I go back to that game, I will be playing it and thinking it's as frustrating as Banjo-Tooie.
Nothing's as frustrating as Banjo-Tooie that I've ever played for this podcast. Okay. Let me run through a few things that I'll wait till the end. Music is good. I think the music in this game is great.
That was a saving grace. Grant Kirkhope's scores are glorious. You can kind of hear that he's learned some new tricks from in terms of what you can get out of the N64 hardware, the sort of sounds you can make. There were certain sounds, particularly around the Jiggy Temple, that put me in mind of Perfect Dark. I was like, oh, okay, like he's kind of learned different instruments, different sounds.
Yeah, and his music is just good. It's the best
great.
Part of this game. It's literally
absolutely
the best part of the game.
I will happily listen to the Banjo-Tooie soundtrack. I will never play the game again.
Yeah, me either. And I thought the game got a little bit better about 10-ish hours in, but only a little. And then after I got some sense of feeling good about it, it would then do something that would crush those feelings and remind me I hate it. Okay.
This just chipped away. This just chipped away at my very soul. Like I was hoping to get to that point, like, or maybe if I keep pushing forward and I get to the point where I have enough moves, that I'll be able to just go back and then just clear up everything I haven't been able to. But just navigating the levels was like, no, I am done with this.
And just so people don't flame us, I want to acknowledge that yes, there is a warp system. You can warp through the silos in the overworld, and each of the locations brings you closer to the entrance of one of the levels. And yes, within the levels, there are warp pads, and you can warp to each of the individual areas inside the levels. And yes, if you use them, it takes away some of the walking. However, when you don't really know where you're going or even what you're looking for, the way you're playing is running around the levels looking for a clue is what to do next. You're never saying, "Oh, I definitely need to go to Atlantis to get," it's like,
You also
what do the
have to
warps do for me?
You also have to activate the warp pads within the levels.
Yeah, you have to get to it first.
Like I said, I spent easily an hour and a half walking around Pterodactyland. I only found 2 warp pads. So if I wanted to go anywhere, I could literally go 2 places, and one of them's the fucking exit.
Yeah. And speaking of the exit, if you had to exit a world, if I had to exit a world, I would just save and quit the game because it was easier to quit the game, go back in the menu, and restart than it would be to leave a level.
Yeah.
It'd be faster. That's awful. If that's the case, come on. Oh, man. Okay. So we mentioned that. Yes, there's a warp around system. Don't flame me too much. There was something else I wanted to mention that we kind of like skipped over that people are going to say, "Oh, but there is that." Oh, there is actually a clue system in the N64 version, but it is so opaque. You have to first go into Jiggy Wiggy Temple, well, you don't necessarily have to do this part, but if you go behind him, there's an invisible wall you can walk through, and there's one of those hint signposts that says the signs that are scattered around the inside of the temple will show you something when fortune smiles upon you or something. Or no. The signs they say, the signs in the temple will say, "Here will be a clue when fortune smiles upon you," something like that. If you go behind Jiggy Wiggy through this invisible wall, you find a sign that says, "You can get fortune to smile upon you in Witchy World." And then you realize, oh, okay. If I talk to the grunty fortune teller in Witchy World, maybe that's how it works. Then you go to Witchy World and you can do this. You can go into this fortune teller hut, and she'll do different things randomly. And eventually, one of them will be like, "Here's a special cheat." Then you take that over to the other temple that's within a different world. It's not in the hub world. It's inside Mayhem Temple. You go in there, you enter this cheat. The cheats were very helpful, by the way. You enter this cheat, and now you can make the signs in Jiggy Wiggy Temple show you the hints for each of the levels to help you with the jiggies. However, if that's not convoluted and ridiculous enough, the Jiggy Wiggy Temple, is locked 90% of the game because it only opens up when you have enough jiggies to open the next world. And when you have enough jiggies to open next world, you open the next world. You just do it. And then if you have a problem in the levels and need a hint, well, guess what? Jiggy Wiggy Temple's locked again, so you can't go see those hints. What is that crap?
I don't know.
Is that believable?
Yeah, no. I having played this game, I can absolutely believe that that's a thing. I can't understand why.
Yeah.
Like, one last thing I kind of want to talk about, and I didn't find the cheat chamber, where my understanding is there's basically like an alphabet on the floor and you butt slam your way to activate cheats.
Yeah.
I remember they basically had to release cheat codes for this temple, for the butt slamming keyboard, that would unlock those things because they couldn't do it the way they originally intended with the cartridge swapping. But the cheat codes were all like ridiculously long, like. Do you know what? I'm going to look them up online.
So there's a way to do it in game, and the temple involves shooting eggs, not even butt slamming. So they make you use the awful first person shooting to do it. But to get those stop and swap things, you have to find secret eggs throughout the world, bring them to Heggy Weggy or some chicken who lives in an egg, and give the eggs to her. Then you have to get the hatch ability for Kazooie to use, sit on the eggs, and when you do it, you get a code that you can then go and enter in the cheat temple.
Right. Because the stop and swap thing didn't work in Tooie, in Kazooie, they had actually put cheat codes in Kazooie, and the cheats were, and I quote, so things like the ice key was a big one. that you couldn't get, and there was expected that you would have to play Tooie to get the ice key in Kazooie. And the cheat code was cheat. Now you can see a nice ice key which you can have for free. You had to spell that out.
Oh, that's straightforward.
Just
Whew.
why?
And I'm blaming that entirely on Tooie, not on Kazooie.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's stop. Is this a smash or at the end of each episode, we decide whether our games were or will be worth revisiting in 2024 and beyond. If they are, they're a smash. If they're not, they're a brick. James, what is this game?
Oh, it's a smash. Superb. It's a masterpiece.
90 out of 100 on Metacritic.
90 out of 100, exactly. This is a brick. This is a massive brick. And it shouldn't be. The heartbreaking thing is it shouldn't be. As I said, sequel to an amazing game. All the original moves plus new ones. Bigger levels, connected levels. It should be a smash. I should have played this and loved it. And I honestly played this and if anyone has any intrigue about this game, just go and play Kazooie. Just go and play Kazooie. It was so therapeutic to go back to Kazooie after giving up on this one and just playing the Mumbo's Mountain level. Yeah. I didn't even go any further than that. Just playing that, and within an hour, you've got half the jiggies or perhaps more than that. Tooie is just not worth playing. Kazooie or nuts and bolts, but Tooie does not need bothering with. Certainly not in this day and age. And frankly, I'm glad I never played it back in the day.
Yeah. I'm sorry that we played it now because we were excited. I'm going to go ahead and say, yes, also a brick. Don't play this crap ever. There are so many other games like this, and they're all better. And I love Rare, and James loves Rare. We're big Rare fans. I'm going to quickly read a couple things off my notes as my final thoughts, just to cover them. I said, that I already covered. Every time I see the split up pads, I get immediately into a bad mood. Pterodactyl Land, I started to talk about this at the beginning. I walked right into it without opening the world. I only had 26 jiggies and it required 20. I don't know how you get into Pterodactyl Land without it. That's just weird. New page. I'm going to let you hear my pages. The Jinjos, super awkward system. 5 per level for a jiggy in Kazooie. Straightforward and wonderful. In this, just a nightmare. There's a different number of Jinjos for each color, and then it's just ridiculous. And they're spread across everywhere. What's the point?
Plus the fake Jinjos, where you think,
so
brilliant,
dumb.
the Jinjo, I'll go and grab that, and then they attack you.
Yeah, those, why? You have plenty of enemies. It's fine. Just don't do that. They're supposed to be, and they have the Jinjo voice too. Oh, come over here. I get maybe the first time. Maybe if they did it once, it would be a funny mimic sort of thing that you could say, oh wow, there's that one that isn't really a Jinjo, but there are a lot of them. I didn't love the humor. I felt like it was maybe I'm just too old. I felt like it was just not my style. I felt like it was a person who's not funny trying to be funny and then looking around the room hoping someone laughed with a stupid grin on their face. The transformations, the splitting up, I found excessive. They made you retread ground all the time. It was just stumbling around. You saw something that you thought you needed a split up or a transformation for. You went back and you had to go get it. And then I couldn't find the thing that I was transforming for. If the game had a pause screen map, it would be 10 times better. Camera, I've talked about a lot. And then I wrote, is this the worst Rare game I've ever played? A final lesson, more is less. Honeycombs, I talked about. Mumbo, awful to control. He can't do anything. His moves are hyper-specific. It should have just been when you go into Mumbo, you get the ability to do the power, and then you can do it with Banjo and Kazooie. Similarly, Jam Jars, you can't learn any of the moves for solo Banjo or solo Kazooie. If you are the two of them together, you have to go back, split up, come back to him, learn the move. That's ridiculous. They're both there. They can hear you. It's just stupid. That's just stupid. What else? I talked about saving and quitting. Here's the next page. Oh God, man, this is so bad. I wrote. I don't think I ever had fun while playing this. This was when I was in Jolly Roger Lagoon, which is a ripoff of Jolly Roger Bay from Mario. I was getting really frustrated. I was ready to quit after this. I don't think I've ever liked a 3D platformer less, especially on Nintendo 64. I'll end it there. Brick, brick, brick. The biggest brick. This is a house full of bricks. Banjo-Tooie.
I agree with all of that. I will just kind of back you up and further add, like, I have bugger all time to play video games now, and it has been utterly wasted on this game.
I'm sorry.
No,
I think you picked it though.
I did, yeah. It's absolutely my fault, and it's one I was going to play at some point anyway.
We could have played Diddy Kong Racing.
We could have played Diddy Kong Racing if I had access to that game. I would have much rather. Look, yeah. Next time you're picking the game, Eddie.
Okay. Well, that's gonna do it for this episode. Let me just read you some stuff here at the end. So yeah, with all that, Banjo-Tooie, as I said, a house full of bricks. It is not worth playing, and it was not worth our time in 2024 and beyond. Thanks for listening, everybody, and I'm sorry if you played along. Unless you loved it, then you amaze me. One person who didn't love it is Tanuki level supporter on Patreon, Ms. Muso. Thanks, Ms. Muso. I read your notes and I agree 100%. This is not nearly as fun as the first game, and for some reason that makes me sad. It's like the developers were trying to make several games and put them all together, and not all that well. Too much exposition, slow to get into. I'm astounded by the high ratings it received. It's just not as fun, and if this was your first Banjo-Kazooie game, I think it would be a bit overwhelming. On a side note, I saw quite a few comparisons between this and DK64, and BT was labeled the better game, mostly as there's less repetition / backtracking. I don't disagree with the repetition bit, but I love DK64 because it was about puzzling through specific challenges with the right character. If DK64 is ever able to be played multiplayer, it would be incredible. But on Banjo-Tooie, I say play it through, play it once. I don't see myself playing this again. On top of everything, Grant Kirkhope is stellar. His music is just great, purpose-built, just great writing. Well, we almost agree there. But I would never say play this through, play it once. I'd say play it zero and play it never. But thanks for writing in, Ms. Miso. Tell your friends about the show. If you haven't done so yet, leave a review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcasting platform. And if you didn't love Banjo-Tooie, leave us a 5-star rating and review. If this was your favorite game, please keep listening and don't review us based on our opinions about it. If you want to go above and beyond and support the show monetarily, you can get some fun perks by going to patreon.smashingbricks.com. You can become a patron for $1 a month or more. If you join at the $5 level, you can now get all of the bonus round episodes, which we're about to record following this. One of them is Best Rare Games of All Time. They're so much fun. I love doing them, and I want more people to hear them. You can also become a guest on the show. You can do a lot of things. You can choose a game for us to play for power-up episodes. You can join us on the Discord, which is discord.smashingbricks.com. Talk about all the games we've played, all the games you've ever played, anything you're doing in life, whatever. Come and talk to us. It's completely free, and it's easy to use. It's great. You can find links to everything at links.smashingbricks.com. As for next episode, I'll be joined once again by Peter Willington to play Knights of the Round, a side-scrolling beat-em-up, slash-em-up for the Super Nintendo and arcade. So get your hands on a copy of that, play along, send in your thoughts, and join us next time on Smashing Bricks. That wraps it up for today. I'm still aggravated. Eddie Inzauto. That is James Batchelor. Thanks, James.
Thank you so much, Eddie. I'm glad we got through this together.
Yeah, we made it through together. Until next time, everybody, may the nostalgia be with you.